Hey there, fellow taxpayers. Today we're diving into a topic that might not be on your radar but definitely should be. It's something that affects all of us, whether we realize it or not. Let's talk about something that might make your blood boil. Property tax fraud. Yes, you heard that right. It's a sneaky, under-the-radar issue that can have a big impact on your wallet. It's a real thing, folks, and it's costing honest people like you and me a whole lot of money. Imagine working hard, paying your dues, and then finding out that someone else is gaming the system. Think of it like this: you wouldn't want someone sneaking into your wallet and swiping a few bucks, right? Well, property tax fraud is kinda like that, but on a much larger scale. Instead of your wallet, they're messing with your house and your hard-earned cash. It's like a hidden tax that you didn't even know you were paying. In a nutshell, property tax fraud is when someone tries to trick the government into thinking their property is worth less than it really is. This isn't just a minor fib, it's a calculated move to dodge paying their fair share. Why? Because the lower the value, the lower the property taxes they have to pay. Sneaky, right? But here's the kicker. When they pay less, the rest of us end up paying more to make up the difference. This means less money for community services like schools, parks, and emergency services. It's not just about individual loss, it's about the collective impact on our neighborhoods. So what can we do about it? Awareness is the first step. By understanding how property tax fraud works, we can be more vigilant and report suspicious activities. If you suspect someone is committing property tax fraud, don't hesitate to report it to your local tax authority. Many places have anonymous tip lines to protect your identity. Remember, fighting property tax fraud isn't just about protecting your own wallet, it's about ensuring fairness and equity in our communities. Every little bit helps. So, let's stay informed, stay vigilant, and work together to keep our communities strong and fair. Thanks for tuning in, and let's make a difference, one step at a time. Now, before we dive into the nitty-gritty of how these fraudsters operate, let's take a quick step back and talk about property taxes. Property taxes are a crucial part of the revenue system for local governments. They fund essential services like schools, police departments, fire services, and public infrastructure. Without these taxes, many of the services we take for granted would be severely underfunded or non-existent. Basically, they're like a yearly fee you pay to the government based on the value of your property. This value is determined by an assessment, which is an estimate of how much your property is worth on the open market. Assessors look at various factors including the size of your home, the land it sits on, and the value of similar properties in your area. The more your house is worth, the more you usually pay. This system is designed to be fair, ensuring that those with more valuable properties contribute more to the community's needs. However, it also means that as property values increase, so do your taxes, which can be a burden for some homeowners. Think of it like this. Imagine your house is a giant, delicious cake. The bigger and more luxurious the cake, the more people will want a piece of it. In this analogy, the government is one of those people and they want their share to fund public services. The government comes along and says, hey, that cake looks pretty valuable. They assess the cake's value and decide how big of a slice they need to take to support the community. This slice represents your property tax. We're going to need a slice of that. The size of the slice they take depends on the assessed value of your property. If your property is worth a lot, the slice will be bigger. If it's worth less, the slice will be smaller. The size of their slice depends on how much they think your cake is worth. This is where things can get tricky. Sometimes the assessed value might not accurately reflect the true market value of your property, leading to disputes and appeals. Property tax fraud is like trying to convince the government that your cake is actually a stale old donut, so they'll take a smaller bite. Fraudsters might underreport the value of their property or use other deceptive tactics to reduce their tax burden. This not only cheats the system but also places a greater financial strain on honest taxpayers who end up shouldering more of the community's costs. It's important to understand that property taxes play a vital role in maintaining and improving our communities. By paying your fair share, you're contributing to the well-being and development of the place you call home. So, while it might be tempting to find ways to lower your tax bill, remember that these funds are essential for keeping our neighborhoods safe, educated, and thriving. Now you might be thinking, but John, how do people even commit property tax fraud? It's not like they can just slap a new price tag on their house. And you're right, it's not that simple. But these fraudsters are a creative bunch, and they've got a whole bag of tricks up their sleeves. Some of these tricks are pretty elaborate, like faking documents or creating fake identities to hide ownership. Others are more low-tech, like good old-fashioned bribery. But no matter the method, the goal is always the same: to pay less in property taxes than they should. One of the most common ways people try to pull a fast one is by undervaluing their property. This basically means they tell the government their house is worth way less than it actually is. It's like trying to sell a Ferrari for the price of a used bicycle. They might do this by providing false information about the property, like saying it's smaller than it is, or that it's in worse condition. Some even go so far as to hire shady appraisers who are willing to lowball the value for a little under-the-table cash. Section 5. Scheme 2, the phantom damage deduction. Another popular tactic is to claim deductions for damages that don't actually exist. Remember that leaky faucet you've been meaning to fix? Well, some people might try to convince the government that it's actually a sign of catastrophic water damage, slashing their home's value and their tax bill in the process. It's like going to the doctor and saying you broke your leg playing basketball when you actually just stubbed your toe on the coffee table. Sure, you might get away with it for a little while, but eventually the truth has a way of coming out. Section 6. Exemption Exploitation. And then there are the exemption exploiters. These are the folks who try to claim exemptions they're not actually entitled to. For example, there are exemptions for senior citizens, disabled individuals, and veterans. But some people try to game the system by claiming these exemptions even though they don't qualify. It's like using your older sibling's ID to get into a bar. Sure, you might think you're being slick, but if you get caught, you're going to be in a whole heap of trouble. Section 7. Staying one step ahead. Protecting yourself from property tax fraud. So, how do we stop these property tax pirates from plundering our hard-earned money? Well, the first step is awareness. The more you know about property tax fraud, the better equipped you'll be to spot it and report it. Next, stay organized and keep good records. Make sure you have copies of all your property tax documents, including assessments, bills, and any correspondence with the assessor's office. It's like keeping a receipt for a new TV. If something goes wrong, you've got proof of what you paid. Section 8. When things go wrong. Reporting suspected fraud. If you do suspect that something fishy is going on, don't be afraid to speak up. You can report suspected property tax fraud to your local assessor's office or your state's tax agency. Remember, reporting fraud isn't being a snitch. It's about protecting yourself and your community from those who are trying to cheat the system. Think of it like this: if you saw someone robbing a bank, you'd call the police, right? Property tax fraud might not be as dramatic as a bank robbery, but it's still stealing and it's still wrong. Section 9. Conclusion. Don't be a victim. Be savvy about your property taxes. Look folks, property taxes are a part of life. Whether you own a cozy little bungalow or a sprawling estate, property taxes are something you can't escape. They are the dues we pay for the privilege of owning a piece of land, a home, a place to call our own. These taxes are essential for the functioning of our communities. We might not like paying them, but they're how we fund important public services like schools, roads, and fire departments. Imagine a world without these services. Schools would struggle to provide quality education, roads would fall into disrepair, and emergency services would be underfunded. Our property taxes ensure that these vital services continue to operate smoothly, benefiting everyone in the community. But that doesn't mean we should let fraudsters get away with not paying their fair share. Property tax fraud is a serious issue that undermines the integrity of our tax system. When individuals or businesses evade their property taxes, it places an unfair burden on the rest of us. We end up paying more to cover the shortfall, and that's simply not fair. By staying informed, being vigilant, and speaking up when we see something wrong, we can all do our part to combat property tax fraud and ensure that everyone is paying what they owe. It's not just about protecting our wallets, it's about ensuring fairness and equity in our communities. When we all contribute our fair share, we all benefit from better services and a stronger community. Remember, knowledge is power, and when it comes to property taxes, a little knowledge can go a long way. Stay savvy out there. Educate yourself about your local property tax laws, understand how your taxes are calculated, and don't hesitate to ask questions if something doesn't seem right. The more you know, the better equipped you'll be to navigate the complexities of property taxes and protect yourself from potential fraud. So stay informed, stay vigilant, and most importantly, stay savvy.